Hello, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Mark. Mark and I are going to talk about the impact of leadership on the new normal. So what is leadership going to look like in the world going forward? Mark, tell everybody where they can get hold of you.
Well, first, let's use email. We still answer our own email here at WorkIQ. It's mark.babbitt@workiq.com, and WorkIQ is spelled WORQIQ.com.
And Babbitt is MABBITT.
That's right. Well done, sir.
As per your name tag. So Mark, I actually we're going to talk about your. Is it your second book?
It is my second book. Yes,
it is your second book. Because I have your book somewhere, and I've looked for it on my. I must have lent it out to somebody because I can't find it anywhere. I was looking for it yesterday, and you've got a copy of it on the back shelf there.
Yes.
And I remember reading it, and I loved it. And we've been connected now for ever since you went live with that, and it was fantastic. But today we're here to talk about the good comes first.
Yes, sir. Good
So
comes first.
Give us the full title of what it is, because I know it's quite a long title, isn't it?
It is quite a long title. The subtitle is How Today's Leaders Create an Uncompromising Culture That Does Not Suck, and it's deliberately direct, Tim, because we're not having valid, relevant conversations about company culture. We're spending billions of dollars trying to improve company culture, just like we've spent billions of dollars trying to improve employee engagement, but we're not moving the needle at all. And especially now, as our vaccinations are spreading and people are starting to go back to work, there's just no better time to talk about deliberately creating that uncompromising culture where people actually enjoy their work.
Because there's what's the statistic? There's how many employees are disengaged at work. I can't remember if it's.
Well, typically it's around 30, 32, 33% that are actively disengaged, but the reality is the number is so much bigger than that because it's self-reported and people don't want to complain. They want to fit in. They don't want to rock the boat, especially in command and control structures. They just think this is normal, and command and control does not have to be normal, and it shouldn't be part of our normal.
So what was the motivation behind writing the book?
Well, I'll tell you that
you've joint authored it, haven't you, with Chris Edmonds?
Yes, I am honored to write with Chris Edmonds, and Chris and I work together as executive coaches and consultants, and the recurring trend even before the pandemic was I talk a good game as a leader, but in the end, I just want you to do what I want you to do. And boy, we really need that third quarter report to look good. And even if it doesn't look good, and I'm okay with disrespecting you as long as the results are there, as long as I get what I want. And as we all know, Tim, our personalities as leaders tend to dictate what kind of company culture we have. And so having helped many companies over the years improve their company culture and increase their level of workplace intelligence, it occurred to us that we need a playbook, we need a guidebook to help leaders who've never been tasked, by the way, most of them, with changing company culture, improving company culture, even understanding their company culture. Oh, it is what it is. And Good Comes First is written to help companies, help leaders figure out their role in developing the company culture that people actually where people actually succeed.
Because if you think work has changed so much. I don't think that we actually realize it, but I remember when we hit the pandemic in March and April of last year, there was loads of people going on LinkedIn saying this is what we're doing to get, and it was, well, we're taking our command control processes, and we've now put them online. So we will have a meeting every 8:30 every morning, and if you're not there, you'll get fired type thing. And won't we all be happy when we have these 8:30 meetings?
Won't we all be happy? No, nobody's happy. That's the problem, Tim.
I saw there was some sales training organization. They were saying that they were doing it, and I thought I'd resign because if you had me up, I'm an early riser, but if you want me to basically be at 8:30 every morning saying, "Oh, great, I'll get the company years," that's not me. I'm sorry.
No. Well, you're not alone, and I'll tell you, it's almost a pandemic of its own. We gave people over the last 15, 16 months an incredible amount of autonomy, and we learned during those 15, 16 months that what you've just described didn't work for anybody. It's like, we're just going to take our command and control structure and move it to Zoom. No, I didn't like it when I was sitting next to you, let alone sitting, in my own house with the trying to get kids ready for school or helping with distance learning. And now the dog needs out and it didn't work before. Well, how's it going to work now? And the alarming statistic for me, Tim, the most telling statistic is Gallup just came out with a poll that said 84% of CEOs want their employees to come back into the office and just go back to whatever the old normal was. But only 10% of employees want anything to do with that. And it just kills me that CEOs aren't out there talking, respecting their employees enough to go ask them what worked best for you. And how do we take the best of the old normal and combine it with what worked so well over the last 16 months and keep your productivity levels where they are without burning you out, which happened a lot over the during the pandemic. And let's co-create this new culture, and let's combine the best of social and digital media and technology with the work that we need to get done to exceed the expectations of our customers. Let's work together to co-create that culture. And that is not happening, and it's going to be a tough road for leaders who think that they're just going to go, okay, pandemic's over, everybody back to work. Aren't we all happy? No, if they weren't happy during those 8:30 a.m. meetings you described, they're not going to be happy getting on the train at 6:30 in the morning.
No, and commuting when there's loads of germs around now.
No, well, and listen, I don't want to sound all negative about the whole return to work thing. But let's do it right. Let's work together. Let's talk together. Let's put the showing of respect on the same level as the results that we all want to generate, and then we can build a new normal together. And I don't know if business leaders are really in that mode yet. And we talk in the book, Tim, about we have a phrase that we use. We call it boomer male syndrome, or BMS.
Right.
And it is whether it's falsely labeling leaders or not, and we know we'll be accused of that. It is typically the white, older male leaders who are saying, "Just get back to work."
Yeah.
Right? There's no empathy. There's no conversation. There's very little respect being shown, and we hope Good Comes First helps those older white leaders say, well, maybe there is a better way to do this.
So Karina very kindly has left a comment that this new digital revolution must be how our predecessors felt with the Industrial Revolution.
Well,
excuse me.
It is. And, time for another cup of coffee, Tim, or some more. There you go. Karina's absolutely right.
Never work on live television.
No. Well, you're doing very well, thank you. Everybody gets a frog in their throat. Karina's absolutely right. This technology that most of us knew all about when the pandemic hit, it was foreign to most leaders, most boomer leaders, and thank God, many of them have embraced this. Right? It's not all of them. Many have said, my age, by the way, I am an older white male, obviously. many of them have said, holy crap, this is actually better. I enjoyed this. I want to continue this, but many are saying, technology be damned, digital revolution be damned, get your butts back to work and complain. And oh, by the way, you're just lucky to have a job. So we let you keep your job during the pandemic, and you repay us by saying, no, we don't want to go back to work. Well, no, going back to work sucked. Work sucked. The old normal for many people sucked. And so let's build something different.
So we've had a comment from Janie. It's actually the first comment I think I've ever had from Twitter. It's Periscope, which just says good morning, but it's good to know that there's people out there watching us.
There are people out there
on social channels, yes, and it's great to and Mark will take any of the questions that you want to put forward. But Mark, let's talk about the book. Let's talk about what is it that the leadership should be doing, because we had a great conversation about, because I went down the usual track of it's about culture and stuff like that, and you said no, it's not.
Well, it is ultimately about culture. The company culture is in the subtitle, but it's mostly about leadership and the traits that a leader must exhibit to make real change happen, to become a change champion within their own company. And yes, there's a way to do that. There's literally the whole middle of the book is a how-to define, align, and refine your company culture. And refine is the most important part when you get to it, because that's where we close the gap between what our culture is now and what we want it to be. But mostly, we hope it's a wake-up call. We hope for leaders, we hope they read this book and say, you know what, I can't delegate this.
Because one of the things,
I am the change champion.
One of the things that we talked about yesterday was that if you go to a CEO and say, have you thought about sustainability? They go, yeah, I've got this person that does this.
Right.
Have you thought about employee engagement and employee experience? Yes, go to HR. So what they've done is, in effect, is delegated out this leadership culture point. Well, whereas what you're saying is that you boiled it down to one of value, respect, results, but you were human beings.
Well, the human aspect of it is the most important, Tim. Is leaders have a habit of sitting on high and saying, do as I say, not as I do. And it's been like that for 100 years. And this is where it's tough for some leaders, because their predecessors weren't active listeners. Their mentors weren't active listeners. We were never taught as leaders. I was never taught as a leader to actually sit down with an employee and find out what's working for them and what's not, and how I can help, right? And good comes first when you really get down to it. It is a human issue, and the deliberately putting good first means having that meaningful conversation where the person leaves the room thinking, wow, she really listened to me, and my input is heard. I do have a voice here. And that, sure, the CEO of IBM can't talk to 60,000 people. I completely get that. But if the executive team at IBM talks to their team members that way, then their team members talk to their team members that way, and so on, then company culture becomes this process where respect is put on the same levels as results. And we can clearly define the values. We can't just say, oh, well, one of our values is integrity, but then the CEO is caught in the elevator kicking the puppy, right? I mean, and then trying to cover it up. Well, that doesn't have much to do with integrity, right? Leaders today must be, among all their other titles and all their other duties, they must be chief role model. They must lead the way. And so once we define our values, we have to live by them. There's no more running yellow lights. There's no more going through the express lane with 18 items. There's rules. There's expectations. And if we as leaders don't live up to those expectations in a very human way, we can't expect anybody else to do it.
So you say in your book, there's a middle section which is like a playbook. describe that to us for us.
Well, my co-author is a brilliant man, Chris Edmonds. Quite some time ago, came up with the phrase and the concept of an organizational constitution. And so the middle of the book takes readers through how to develop that organizational constitution, which is defining the value, not just defining the values, but declaring the behaviors that would show us if you're living up to those values or not, right? For instance, you would go to your employees and say, one of our values is mutual respect. Do you feel respected when I talk to you? And we do this in pulse surveys and bigger surveys and through workplace intelligence assessments. And we actually learn what people think about those leaders and how well they're living up to those models. So once we have that baseline and we do it with all leaders, then we have it defined, we have the culture defined, then we have to coach and mentor to help people say, this is our culture. And that's the align phase. And that's a big part of the middle section of the book is, okay, we're not judging anybody, but here's what we've co-created. Here's what we've agreed to is going to be our company culture. Now let's get everybody aligned. Not just the leaders, of course, not just the people that are kind of, just collecting a paycheck, but everybody, right? Let's show them this is the new way. And then the last phase and the last section of the middle of the book is that refine phase we already talked about. How are we going to fix, rectify, close the gap on the people who are not deliberately living the values and showing the behaviors, and especially in high performing companies, fast-paced companies, Tim, it's often the high performers that aren't, well, I don't have to do that because my sales numbers are good. Well, you're being a jerk. Nobody likes working with you. You're a terrible manager, and you're driving good people away. And that's the refined phrase. And Chris Edmonds uses a phrase that I love. He says, when people aren't aligned and refuse to be aligned, they've proven they're not going to align, we must lovingly set them free because they're not living the culture that we've co-created. Yeah.
So you're an expert in social media. So is there any social media input into that?
Oh my goodness, Tim. The social media has, as you know, has taken over everything. The digital revolution has taken over everything. And one of the things that we're thrilled about is that we can go look at a company's social digital presence and we can tell if they're living their values, right? And not only can we tell,
I talk about this a lot, and nobody.
Right, I know.
I just love what you're saying, Mark, because it's
right.
You can look on LinkedIn and you can see what
employee.
Yeah.
Right, and think about how anybody can declare their values. It's happened for years. The plaque on the wall in the lobby talking about what their mission is. Yeah. It's BS. It's total BS because nobody lives that. And now, through digital and social media, through technology, we can actually, it's almost like a monitoring device. And I know companies have been using social monitoring as a consumer manipulation tool for a long, long time. But we can also use that as a tool. We can also say, does that leader really live the values? And one of our primary values, I'll tell you, and it's a big part of the book, it's one of our cornerstones in the book, is use our voice for good. And it's a challenge to leaders to make a difference in the world, to correct inequities, yep. To correct, to deliberately fix gender pay gaps, to help with issues, major issues like climate change and poverty. Mm-hmm. And we can go on social and digital media right now, Tim, and tell who's using their voice for good and who isn't. We
yes,
can't,
yeah.
We couldn't do this without it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I often see, we have this debate about whether CEOs should be on social media, and it's a complete, the debate's rubbish because the CEOs are on social media. And it's about whether they actually do anything with it. But I can look at an organization. Someone come to me the other day and I said, I can see from your LinkedIn profiles that you're way behind the digital curve. Now, they never came back to me. They don't. People often don't.
They won't. No.
But you can see that you can actually see that organization is way behind the digital curve just by looking at what their LinkedIn profiles look like.
Well, and Tim, that has never been more true than since the pandemic hit.
Yes.
Because now everybody's online. Everybody's acting, living online through technology, and why not? Why not?
We got a comment from I think is it Jenny or Janie?
Jenny or Jenny, yes.
The problem is lots of their egos get in the way, and there's no real leadership communication. They're too busy in their own heads, fill it up with their heads with the position they're in.
Well, Jenny, you just described boomer male syndrome, and that's exactly what it is. Boomer male syndrome is an ego-driven, precedent-driven process where we can't get out of our own way, where we're afraid to actively listen, where we don't want to sometimes hear the truth, and there's nothing more important than truth to leaders as we rebuild company cultures. We do have our head in the sand. We always think everything's okay. We read our career page or our about us page and we go, damn, we're good. Well, no, you're not good. And your digital presence proves it. And you know, the old saying, the truth hurts, Tim. Well, yeah. The other part of that is that the truth also sets us free. And we have to know where we stand now before we can start to close the gap between even the scariest cultures can be fixed if we just start to close the gap between what we really want and what we have. Yeah.
You said something to me yesterday, which I thought was really good. A question, which is, what is your leadership legacy?
Well, that's a big part of this, Tim. Is, you know, one thing about us older people, male and female, regardless of gender, race, anything, is at some point we want to know what we're leaving behind, right? And it's our feeling that we can't feel good when we're 85 or 45 or 35 for these young entrepreneurs to say, boy, I had a great exit, or boy, the stock value, my shareholders love me. Well, your employees hate you. Nobody wants to work for you. HR can't get good people. Engagement is terrible. And so we're hoping to drive leaders to think about the respect they've shown, the values they've lived, the people they've mentored, the difference they made as human beings, just as much as respect. And we're already seeing this in so many ways, right? With the social issues going on and people saying, you know what, I was one of those guys with my head in the sand. That's not me anymore. It's not enough just to say, well, of course, diversity matters. I'm going to stand up now and I'm going to be an anti-racist.
Yes.
And we're seeing these trends, and it's so refreshing. And that's a person creating a new leadership legacy to say, I am going to use my voice for good. I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. And I'm out there in front and I'm going to help fix this. And I'm going to ask the people in my company to help fix this. We're going to lead by example. And that's a huge, huge part of this process.
And there's a great comment there from Karina saying that people need to take their head out of the sand and have a come to Jesus moment with digital. Well,
digital is our communication tool. Right, it's I said earlier, it's impossible for the CEO of bigger companies to talk to everybody. They don't have to talk to everybody. They can listen. They can enjoy the conversations that are already happening. Without delegating it. By the way, get on your LinkedIn profile. Get on your Twitter account. Look at your Facebook page and see how people are responding to your new initiatives, your new products. Go to Glassdoor and see how your employees really feel about you, right? And then start asking the tough questions. Start the tough conversations, and now we're active participants in the change instead of bystanders or victims of change.
Mark, thank you so much for coming and talking today. Remind everybody the name of your book.
It's good comes first, how today's leaders create uncompromising company cultures that don't suck.
And it's available on Amazon, I'm assuming.
It will be. It's coming out September 21st. So it's
Okay, so
available
it's on
for
pre-order
pre-order now. Yes, sir.
Right. Okay, cool. And where can people remind people where they can get hold of you?
Mark.babbitt@workiq.com. Again, work IQ is spelled WORQIQ.com.
Okay, fantastic. Mark, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for the
especially
conversation.
and sharing your expertise. And it's great to get a little bit of audience participation, both from Janie and Karina. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you both.
And thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate the conversation.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, bye-bye.